Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this postmortem of my Blitz game number 630. My opponent played e4 here, went with e5, and we get a classical opening, the Italian game. After the usual opening moves, the knight choose bishop c5. You can also go with the two knights defense with knight f6. Another respectable way to play. And d3, bit of a rare move, but not too unusual. You can see it's the third choice here, and often transposes into the quiet line of the Italian game. The main line was c3 followed by d3. So he plays d3 here. I go knight f6. And you can see right here, c3 would be the top choice in getting back into the main line. Also, just continuing it developing makes sense. Knight to c3 or castles would both be good moves in this position. But my opponent plays the rare move, knight to g5. And we're just out of the opening book at that point. And it's a rare move because it's not very good. It's a premature attack on f7. Now, one thing you always have to worry about in the Italian game is this attack on f7, so you just have to be sure that you're prepared to meet that move at all times. But castling is a good defense. White doesn't really want to give up two pieces for a rook and a pawn. That exchange works out in black's favor. But, well, white has a different idea and gives the idea away when he plays the immediate h4. So this is the famous fishing pole attack. I go ahead and play h6 to kind of prod the knight and see if he really intends to leave it there. And you might wonder, since I'm not going to take that knight for a while, why bother placing the pawn on h6? But it does two things. It asks the knight the question if it's going to move, and then it can just stay there for a long time and take when the moment is appropriate. So h6 is a good move there. Let's see, he plays c3. Even if you don't intend to take immediately. So c3 is just kind of a waiting move, seeing if I'm going to go ahead and actually take the knight, which would be a mistake here. If I take, he takes back. And then if I move the knight away, then the queen comes in with queen to h5. And actually there's an unstoppable mate in this position. The combination of the rook and queen on the open h-file. This pawn is also controlling some important squares. And even this bishop is contributing by pinning the f-pawn. So you might think you could get away with g6 at some point, but queen takes g6 check is winning as well. Of course, you can just take the knight here too and mate. So anyway, no way to stop the mate here. There is some kind of defense if you accidentally wander into one of these and you realize, oops, I can't allow the queen there. You can try shutting down this diagonal with d5. And then he can grab the knight, so you've given the material back. But when you take on f6 here, you're coordinating against his f2 square, so you have a threat as well. So there's no time for him to play queen to h5. But white can block your diagonal with d4. Let's see, you play g6 now to keep his queen out of the h5 square. And then we get these exchanges where you lose another pair of bishops. And after knight a3, white's actually better in this position. This pawn is going to be hard to keep. And white's just going to castle queenside and have a slightly safer king, I think. The material is still even. So maybe if you hold on to this pawn, you can play this game. But white's a little better. So it's a mistake to actually grab that knight here. And the way I played is the right way. You push on with d5. And it's often the rule that when you can get in the move d5 in one of these Italian games with black and get away with it, then you've equalized. In this case, I've more than equalized because white has played this bad move, knight g5. So I'm better here. Let's see. And I stay better for quite a while. But you'll see, I do make some mistakes later. So let's see. He plays b4. I drop my bishop back. He plays a4, threatening to trap the bishop. I play a6. He plays a5, kicking it. Drop all the way back. Now he plays queen b3. Queen b3 is threatening my knight. So I play knight c to e7, defending it. And now he goes knight a3. And after knight a3, I can actually take the knight, and I do. And this is the first point that, the knight has been sitting there for about 5 moves. Let's see. I played h6 on move 6, and now we're on move 13, so 7 moves. But this was the first time that it was really good to take the knight. I verified that with the chess engine, but now this is just winning. So if we back up, he needed, instead of knight a3, he needed to play knight e4 here, or knight f3. Just get the knight out of trouble and play on. And the material is even here. White's still a little better, just has a little better development. Okay, so but knight a3 is losing, and I play correctly here, so I'm still on the right track. And let's see, I went with c6 to support my knight and to free up my other knight, so that I can go to g6. I was going to play knight g6 to try and get to some of these squares, and he plays g6, which allows me to get to the square I wanted to go to and win a pawn. But he did open up a line for his bishop, so he's opening up lines and trying to go for the attack. Let's see, he goes queen d1, trying to get his queen back over here. And I bring my knight to f4, and this turns out to be a good defense. It controls this h5 square, and the bishop is controlling g4. So not too many good entry points for the queen at this point. He decides to trade off that knight and then kick it, the replacement knight, with g3. And now here's where I start to go downhill a little bit. The best defense right here is knight to h3, a nice move, supported by the bishop, and just shutting down the h-file, and he can't easily chase that away. His pieces are kind of out of play over on the queen side. He can try queen h5, and of course he could win 2 pieces for the rook here, but I can defend with queen f6, and I would still be up material if he were to grab that, trying to grab those 2 pieces for the rook. So castling is the best move. Now g6, and notice that g6 is played when the queen is supporting it, because without that, due to the pin, queen takes g6 would be possible. But with the queen supporting it, now his queen has to move, and then queen g5 here, check, would get the queens off, and I would go into a simpler game, just a piece up. So that would be the simplest way to win this. I came out with queen g5. This is still winning, but not by as big a margin. So now I've given the piece back, and I'm just a pawn up, because he's got 4 against 3 over here, and I have 3 on 1 over here. So I just have 1 extra pawn, and I still have an advantage in development here. But he can start to equalize, or well, he can't equalize, but his best play here is d4. I go bishop g4, kicking his queen, f3 blocking my bishop, and let's see, I can throw in rook f8 check, king d2, and bishop here. And we get this kind of position. I have the bishop here, I have an extra pawn, and his king is a little bit insecure, but so is mine. So it's winning for black, but it's a long game. Queen f3 is not the best move here. I get bishop g4 in with tempo. That's pretty good. And he goes rook g1. And here I have the winning tactic that I missed. So from the moment he played knight g5 up until this point, I'm just winning. and here's the moment in which I should put him away. So if you want to pause the video here and see if you can find the tactic, it's a pretty straightforward one that you should recognize the pattern right away. Okay, I'm going to explain the idea now. So there's a pin on this bishop, so he's defending this queen by using a pin. And of course, the thing you always think about tactically is how can you unpin with tempo? And there's a good way to do it here with queen to e5 check. And if he moves his king, you're just going to take the queen. And if the queen tries to interpose in these squares, you can take it. The one tricky point, which you might not have seen, is he can try blocking here, and you can't take the queen. But what you can do is you can take over here with check, and you are picking up the rook in the corner. So because the king can't come forward, all these squares around the king are controlled by your pieces. So that is the win there. Let's see, I played rook f8 check, f to e8 check, and he went king d2. And I had seen that I could just get the queens off this way, and I just went for this simplification, where I'm still a pawn up, still probably winning, but once again, the game is longer than it should be. I should have just finished it, and we'll see what happens when the game extends for too long. Let's see, he went back to c1. I start to make mistakes. My concentration, I guess, fades towards the end of the game. Or maybe time pressure, but I don't think I was in time pressure here. But I start making moves that are not the best. So right here, it's best just to go ahead and take that pawn. I was a little worried about him playing rook to f5 and ganging up on my f pawn, but I have a way to deal with that. If I take and he goes rook f5, which is not a maybe it's his best try here, then I can block with bishop to d5. And now my rook is guarding this pawn, my king is guarding this pawn. He can pick up a pawn over here by trading out his bishop. But anyway, my remaining pieces will be active, and I will have 3 pawns over here that are unopposed. So that's a winning position for black. Let's see, I went king f8. This is still winning. It takes one more mistake before we get back to an even game. Let's see, he goes rook f5. I go f6 is my idea. I can just defend that pawn, give up this pawn. And now once again I need to play rook f2 and just defend that bishop. And after rook f2 I can always bring my rook down here with check to trade the rook off with tempo and rescue the bishop in case I'm worried about that pin. But there's no great way for him to exploit that pin anyway. So rook f2 is a safe move, and it's the best move here. I just retreated the bishop so my rook wouldn't have to bother about defending it all the time. And now he plays d4, and this is an even game at this point. He can win the exchange here if I don't do something about it. In fact, I let him win the exchange, but turns out there's not much else that's better for me in this position. I didn't explore various alternatives, but it's just the engine evaluation for all the moves was about the same. So he's just managed to equalize here. He doesn't take the exchange right away. Maybe he didn't see it. I didn't see it, actually. So it's possible both of us missed that. Let's see, and I was just more concerned about getting my pieces in the game. This move d4, it shut out this bishop over here. So that's what I was doing. And let's see, I also attacked his rook, so he goes over here, attacks my bishop, I defend it, and now he takes the exchange, which had been available to him for a while there. Yeah, this position is about even. He just needs to save his pawn. Just push his pawn on with f4 and have to play on. The material is even now. It's 2 pawns against 1 over here, 4 against 3 over here. He's up the exchange, but the bishop pair is worth quite a bit in a case like this, an open board, the bishop pair and the rook. So it's not like white has a material edge, really. It's close to even, in spite of the fact that he's technically up the exchange. But let's see, he gives me a pawn back by playing knight e3, so I take it. And he goes on with d5. And now I go with the bishop f4, pinning his knight, and he decides to give the exchange back right away. So he takes, I take, takes the pawn, I take, and then he comes forward with the king to b2, letting his rook out. And I start pushing my queenside pawn. So this is all okay, and I am in the advantage. I have the advantage again. So I had played some inaccurate moves, allowed him to equalize, but then he made a mistake again and let me back into the front. Let's see. So he plays rook h1, hitting my bishop. I drop back. He comes in with the check. Come forward. Comes over here and attacks my pawn, and I defend it. And then he plays c4. And then once again, there's another place where I have the advantage, and I let him back in the game. So this exchange of taking the pawn here is a mistake. It's a much better move to play rook e4, attacking his knight. And then when the knight moves, I can grab that pawn and defend my pawn as well. So that's the best way to play it. Bishop takes c4. It just looked like a way to simplify, but it simplifies into an endgame where he has some drawing chances. I take here. And then the key idea for white is not to grab the pawn right away, but to play king b3, attacking my rook and defending his b pawn. I drop back. He plays rook to c1, and I play rook to c1. He plays rook takes a6. So now it's 3 pawns against 2. This is about even according to the chess engine. These pawns are pretty far advanced. These 2 pawns are pretty far advanced, And I do have, I would still play this as black. I think I have some winning chances because these pawns are unopposed. His king is cut off. And, I have a knight, I have a pawn here and a rook nearby to try and slow these pawns down. But, yeah, the chess engine says with good defense that white should be able to hold this. Anyway, he took the pawn right away. Rook takes a6, allows me to grab another pawn with tempo. King over to c3. His king gets out a little bit, but in this position, it's just a winning endgame with the 2 extra pawns. Let's see, he comes forward with his king, trying to push his pawn forward, and I start marching my pawns forward. And, he could round up this pawn. Let's see, he goes for the check first, and rook to a8. And I didn't want to allow this, this is a common trick, this skewer, to pick up the pawn. I get my king out of the way, and then he pushed on with a6. If he tried rook g8, which is what I was expecting, I have king f4 here, and I'm still going to be able to hold on to my extra material here and queen that pawn, just march it forward with the help of the king or this pawn. So it's still winning for black. Anyway, he went with a6, which is makes it a simpler win for me. I just push on. Now he comes over here, and I get the queen. He takes it off. I take back. Cancel that. I take back. And he takes on c6, and I bring my rook over to stop his pawn from queening. And now my king is in front of this pawn, and I have a rook, so he can't abandon his pawn. So, and if he advances the pawn, I just give up the rook for the pawn and queen this one. So an easy win from this point, and he resigned. Anyway, interesting game. Hope you guys like this. Leave any comments you have in the section below, and I will see you again soon.